Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to Walls of Wellness. I am super excited to have my guest today, Po Hung Yu, who will be joining us shortly. She's literally coming from one situation over to join us. So, as you know, if you've never been with us before, well, rather I should say, hey, good afternoon. For those who know, you know, make sure you got what you need to have. Come on, say it so they know. Pen and piece of paper. Get it ready because you're going to hear something today that prayerfully will inspire you, encourage you, motivate you, help heal you, and have a positive impact on your life. So that's first and foremost. So you want to make sure you have your pen and paper ready. For those who are just joining us for the first time, thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't subscribed, hello, teacher. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button over here on this YouTube side of life at Ask Dr. Walls 525. For those who are just climbing in, as I said, Poe will be here shortly. She is zooming from one virtual space into another virtual space. So let's just get into this mindset of healing and wellness. I know some people have said they never heard of microdosing before. They don't even know what that is. So I'm excited that she is a microdose advisor. So she'll definitely be able to help us understand what that is and why some people choose to utilize that as a health option. She is also a somatic healer. She will explain exactly what that means. And she will also be sharing her healing journey. I've had the opportunity to know Poe for several years now. And so I've watched part of her healing journey because she's been very much living out loud with that healing journey. And we'll talk about why she chose to do that and how it has impacted her life going forward. Hello, hello. It's great to see all of y'all here. Thank you so much for joining. So, Poe will be here momentarily. So, while we're waiting for her to come, I had a thought, and that thought was that we need to watch this video that I created back in 2020. So, right as the pandemic started, I this poem came to me, and there were images that just kept sitting in my head that I wanted to capture as well. And then when the message came through, it was like, it's not just about you, it is also about other people as well. And so, in true fashion, I elicited the help of many people from around the globe. And it ended up being, I want to say, maybe about 13 women who participated from 7 different countries around the world. So let's settle into that for a moment. And when I come back on, hopefully Poe will have been able to join us by this point. All right. So this poem is one that I wrote, and it is called Release and Cry, Sis.
Release and cry, sis. At some point, we were told not to cry. Stop crying. Hold it all inside. It's not that bad. What's wrong, my dear? Don't you know they'll think you're weak, filled with fear? Put up a brave front. Be more strong. Stop acting like a little girl. Keep pressing along. So I held them in, one by one, pulled back each tear, and turned my face to the sun. I sucked and tucked my wails inside, pushed down each feeling, and made sure they'd hide. Turned the key and locked them all away. I told everyone, I'm all right. I don't care. It's okay. Little did I know my mind, body, spirit I did betray. I became misaligned, not knowing my own truth. Instead, I listened to others, an unknown form of abuse. See, I was drowning the voice deep in my being, and my dried out eyes kept me from seeing the truth that tried to rise from inside. But I was told, you better not cry. Into darkness, despair, and uncertainty, I lacked clarity, direction, and no longer felt free. I was trapped by the illusion of the importance of how other people see me. Strength meant no tears coming from inside. I was stronger with the more problems that I could hide. But then my well, see it filled to the brink. From the weight of it all, I began to sink. Then up came the message from deep inside that all of the lies had been trying to hide. These simple directions came from within and led me to release this form of sin. One by one, my love, let them fall. It's time to release that water wall. The stress becomes less by doing this. With sadness released, there's more room for bliss. Remember when you cry, you release more than just tears. You release toxins, trauma, memories, and fears, lies, pain, relationships too, even manipulation, and especially inauthentic forms of you. As you release each tear, make your desires known. What do you want in life? It asked. Take some time, be alone. Where in your life are you unsatisfied? Where in your life are you tired, frustrated, and being denied? To be all that you were created to be, where in your life do you need to be set free? The crisis is the turning point to make something new. It represents the dis-ease in your life and nature's call beckoning you to step up for you. So, how you choose to use this moment really is your choice. I recommend you take some time to learn your inner voice. In the midst of developing this relationship, don't be surprised when your inner voice tells you to release and cry, sis.
All right. And with that said, I now introduce the infamous Po Hung You. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You know, I cannot just welcome you ordinarily. You got to get a tambourine welcome.
I love it. Thank you so much. And wow, that was so beautiful. That was so, so beautiful. Thank
Oh,
you for
thank
sharing.
you. You're welcome. You're welcome. I was saying I wrote that back in 2000, 2020. It was during the crisis. And I don't know if you remember, Tanya had the Phoenix Summit. And leading up to that Phoenix Summit, that was downloaded within. And I thought that would be the perfect opening for you and your healing work that you do. And what I said to the audience prior to you coming on was that you have chosen to live part of this healing journey so out loud and really share it with the world. So I just want you to take a moment and introduce yourself to everyone, and then we'll get flowing into this conversation.
Amazing. I'm so grateful to be here with all of you. My name is Po Hung Yu. Most people call me Po, and I am a trusted advisor, a somatic healer, a microdosing and psychedelic guide, and former acupuncturist. And yeah, I got into this work because of my own healing process, which was quite intense. I've gone through a lot of trauma, and so my process has been really about uncovering and shedding the layers of protection that was created from those traumas. And so I have a very intimate relationship around the process and am so grateful for it. And to me, like you mentioned, I share so openly a lot of my process around coming out of hiding, because I hid so much because that was my sense of safety. And so it's very important for me to share, not only for my own process of digesting my life, but also to hopefully inspire other people and show them what's possible.
And I think we can remove that word hopefully, because you have inspired a whole lot of people since you decided to walk this path and live so out loud. I mean, it's just been incredible to watch you. As I told the audience, I've had the opportunity to know you for several years, and to watch the trajectory has just been amazing. And when I saw one of your posts last week, I was like, that's it. It's time for her to come on. Not that it wasn't time before, because like I said, it was like it had crossed my mind, and then life does what life does. But when I read that post last week, it was like, now's the time that I need you to come on and talk to everyone. And thank God you were available and you graciously accepted this invitation. We were able to make it happen very quickly.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here and have all the juicy, deep conversations that we're about to have right now.
Yes. Well, let's start. So you started out as an acupuncturist. So would you say that you always knew that you were a healer, and would you say that you always accepted that you were a healer?
I love that question. Well, it's interesting. I first laid my hands on my mom when I was 8 years old, on her stomach when she was having a stomach ache. I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't call myself a healer back then because I didn't even know that word. But now that I look back on it, I see that that's when I had some kind of intuitive knowing. And then in my teens, that's when my sexual traumas started when I was 13. But I also was able to see that I had these intuitive gifts. And that's when I started cultivating them. I started creating practices around them at such a young age. And then also, I want to mention just really quickly that a lot of people who have gone through a lot of trauma have also discovered that they have a lot of intuitive gifts, right? Because you become more sensitive and hyper vigilant. There's all these ways that we tune into things that maybe other people don't sense. So that was part of the gift that came from
the
trauma. But yeah, I did, and my stepfather was a grandmaster of martial arts and a Chinese herbal medicine doctor. So I was always raised with Chinese medicine and watching him do martial arts. Plus, my dad was a Jesuit priest that turned into a Taoist enlightened teacher. So I also had this background, even though I was a hot mess. I was such a mess and so self-destructive for a couple of decades. But I had this foundation around energy and healing. And so that also seeped into me. My stepfather did inspire me to be a healer. So I went to school to become a doctor so I could become a Chinese medicine doctor. But then I went to chemistry and I was like, oh, fuck this. I can't do it. Oh, I'm sorry if I can't curse.
All right. We're keeping it 100. Come on.
Okay, cool. So I just was on a path of really knowing that I was here to serve people in this way, but I wasn't able. I had to go through my own process, right? And yes, even after I became an acupuncturist, I was still going through my own process. And the more I have stepped into really owning the work that I'm here to do.
Yes.
Yes, I've had those moments of like, why was I called to do this work? Because the work I do is very deep with people.
Yes.
And not everyone's able to hold this level of, emotion or
Yes.
trauma or support. And
Yes.
so there have definitely been moments like, why was I born a Scorpio and not a
Yes.
Libra, or something like that. The Scorpios are like known for like death and rebirth and transformation, and Libra's like,
The balance.
yeah, balance and love. And so anyway, I definitely had those moments, and I would always, come back and continue to like just trust, right? Trust the process, trust what the divine has called me to.
Yes. Yes. It's interesting. I don't know if you got a chance to see it. Regina was saying this is powerful already and so revealing or reveling. It's so interesting. When you said self destructive, my mind went to disruptive, right? And where it went was disrupting the energy that was trying to settle in as normal, and your self destruction being purposeful because your energy was saying, this is not my truth, and I do not accept it as so. And so disrupting that abnormality and saying, no, I will continue to disrupt it until I find my personal truth.
I love that perspective. Yeah, because it's like, I couldn't just give up. There was some fire in me,
Yeah.
even when I didn't feel like I had it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I love the word disruptive because I feel like that's what I do in a sense for people in a very loving way, help them to disrupt their stories, their, their conditioning, the trauma that's living in their body and their nervous system, their brain. So, yeah, I love that so much.
Yeah. And so with that, so you started with acupuncture. So you poking people first.
Yeah. And people will be like, Poe poked me.
Right.
Yeah.
That could have been the name of your business.
I know.
Right?
Totally.
So did you like the acupuncture part of your healing journey?
Oh my gosh, it was so pivotal for me for multiple reasons. One of my issues was that I had so many identity issues growing up. Like I hated being Chinese. And because I wanted to, it was just like similar story for many first generation or people in general, as kids, we don't feel like we belong. And I subconsciously knew I needed to assimilate in order to feel like I belonged. It didn't work, but that's what happened, right? And so I really disconnected myself from my culture for many years and had shame around it, right? And internalized shame. And so I knew that I wanted to come back to loving this part of me. And that was a long journey. And part of that journey was becoming an acupuncturist. And it came to me through a meditation.
Really?
Working as a, dog walker, pet sitter in Philly, where I met you. And I was meditating on what is it that I'm here to do? Like, I still knew I wanted to do healing work, but I didn't know what path. And I was literally just meditating, just regular meditation. And then the word acupuncture popped into my head out of nowhere. And 2 months later, I started acupuncture school in New York and commuted back and forth to New York for a couple of years. And, that was so powerful for my own healing process of reconnecting with my culture and learning the amazingness of Chinese medicine. And that has really created a foundation in my work because the foundation of acupuncture is Taoism. And Taoism is what my dad teaches. So it all kind of converged naturally, not even on purpose. The universe literally brought it all together. And so, now whatever I do is based on yin and yang, right? The feminine and masculine energy, and with the emphasis on yin energy, because yin energy is very deficient in our culture.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it was very powerful, not only in that way, but also working with patients and really getting to explore and research and discover patterns that people were having, and also learning how to hold space. So it was really my practicing ground, and learning like how the mind and the body are connected. Like one of my specialties was seeing how, you know, people would have physical and emotional ailments because they would repress their emotions.
Talk about it. And so for people who are just learning some of these terms, let's start with Taoism. What is that?
Yeah, so Taoism is a Chinese philosophy based off of yin and yang energy, yin being the feminine energy, yang being the masculine energy. And this is not about gender, this is about energetics. And it's based off of, Taoism is based off of nature, just observing nature, right? And so if we had to categorize, just so you guys can understand more of the yin and yang energy, yin would be the body, yang would be the mind. Yin would be the earth and the soil, and yang would be the sky and what's above, right? So there's this and they both work together as one. If you've seen the symbol of the yin and yang, it's a circle, half black, half white. They're one, they're two in one. And so what happens so often is people are very much in this culture in their head a lot, right? And that's like a hyper masculinity. And so the work of Taoism is around connecting the two, the mind and the body, so that they can work in flow, right? Flow. So that's a short explanation of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then you discover this somatic healing. So let's give people a definition of what is a somatic healer.
Yeah. So, you know, there's a great book. I never read it, but it's basically my work of The Body Keeps the Score, which many people have heard of, where essentially your memories, your traumas, emotions get stored into your body, right? Not only your nervous system, but like your muscles, your cells, like all parts of you, they live in. And so when when we don't allow ourselves to feel, because essentially one of the main things I do is help people learn how to feel, which a lot of people might be like, why do I need to learn how to feel? Well, the thing is, I'm going to break this down real quick, is I differentiate pain from suffering. And so suffering to me is when we are believing the stories, we're believing our ego, we're in the trauma responses, right? There's just like a spinning in the mind. Pain is the raw emotions, like the grief or the anger, the things that we have not allowed ourselves to feel, that we've repressed. So what I see often is that people would rather subconsciously be in suffering versus to avoid the pain. And that's what I did. See, all these things are not things that I studied. These are things that I learned personally. And I did everything to avoid feeling the pain by just ruminating or, you know, future tripping and doing anything but being with me here now in my body. So somatic healing is really about doing this work to move the energy in the body. And that includes inner child work. Sometimes it includes, you know, feeling the sensations in your body, feeling the emotions that want to move. Sometimes it includes, you know, moving your body in certain ways or expressing through your voice, all kinds of tools.
Thank you. And, you know, it's so interesting. So when I first realized that things lived inside of me was I was getting a massage, and I went to I think it's like the Philadelphia School of Massage, to get a massage by the students, because it was like maybe $25 or something, right? And so I went, and the lady was rubbing my back, and she hit my lower part of my back. And literally, I heard this voice say, "How did," and it said the person's name, "hurt you?"
Mm.
To which point I came up off the table trying to figure out how this person even knew this person and knew that this person and I had even been together. And I said, "What did you say?" And she was like, "Nothing." And I was like, "Well, if you ain't say something, who said it?" Because it was as clear as day and it was a female voice. And I was like, okay. So when I left the room, I was sitting out there and it was like 8 of us that had gone. And so I was sitting there and I was sitting next to the receptionist. And I said, has anyone ever like had like a flash memory or something during a massage? And so, and she just kind of looked at me with a little smirk and she was like, "You may want to get Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Meese." And here I go. Okay, thank you. And that just took me on a whole nother journey. And I said, "Son of a freaking gun." And it, because then it was like, what else is living inside of me? Right now, fast forward, goodness knows, almost, I don't know, 16, maybe 12, 14 years later, my husband and I, because now I'm married, my husband and I are on the couch and he's playing with my feet and toes and he's doing like this little piggy went to market, the whole thing. And he gets to one and he plucks it. He just plucks it like that, not hard or anything. Po, y'all, I screamed at the top of my lungs like this man had ripped off my toe and began to wail, not cry, wail uncontrollably. So he's like, "What in the world?" He said, "What, what's wrong? What happened?" I could not move my toes. It was like it was broken. And he's like, "I didn't do anything. What is going on?" I couldn't talk. I mean, my whole body was releasing.
Mm.
Finally, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes later, when it finally stopped, he said, he was like, "What was that?" And the only thing that rose up was when I was 8 years old. I was outside in the backyard playing. My father had gotten us a real baseball. It was probably signed by like Larry Boa or Mike Schmidt or something like that. He told us not to play with it. We chose to play with it. Pop fly. I'm screaming, "I got it, I got it." Put my glove up to catch the ball. Sun beats me in the eyes. Can't see. Ball hits me right here. I open up my mouth. Now, as you can probably imagine, I had the loudest block on the mouth on the block. I open up my mouth to scream when every child runs around me and says, "Don't cry, Kathy. Don't cry. Don't cry. Don't cry. Don't cry. Don't cry. Don't cry. If you cry, we all getting our butts beat. Don't cry. Don't cry. Don't cry." Because I'm getting ready to wail, like shatter the windows and everything. And I then proceed, like in the poem, where I say, "I huff and puff and tucked it all inside." I
Mm-hmm.
and I pushed it down and I pushed it down and I pushed it down. Apparently into that toe.
That one toe.
That one toe was holding that all of these years.
I love that. The body is amazing.
I'm telling you. So if it held that, and let me tell, and I never told my parents, they never knew. We ran inside, we put the ball back where it was supposed to stay. I had been on modeling interviews where they had asked me, had I ever broken my nose? And my mother was like, "Oh no, she's never had." And I'm like this, because I don't know. I probably did,
Mm.
but holding all of that until it finally
Wow.
released itself.
That is
Yeah.
such a powerful story. I love that you shared that because, well, for multiple reasons, but the thing that stands out for me is that a lot of times people think, oh, my childhood was good. Like not everybody has gone through major, what they call big T trauma,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I find a lot of people in the process of doing this healing work, they discover a
Yeah.
moment or moments that they have forgotten or minimized and like, oh, that
That's
was
what I was going to say. Downplay. Yep.
Mhm.
Minimize. Yes.
But it's still there, and it's been
Yes.
affecting them, and as a result, it creates these subconscious patterns. So that's why we do this somatic work and nervous system work and rewiring the brain and nervous system, because if not, we'll keep doing those continuous patterns and not knowing why we can't stop it.
Yes. Yes. And your nervous system gets turned on and it stays on constantly. And then you find yourself being exhausted, unable to think clearly. Like you said, you just get looped into these cycles and patterns. Now, another part of your resume is this whole idea of microdosing. And I know a lot of people in my audience are like, what in the world is that? What does it mean? So do tell us what that aspect is.
Yeah, so microdosing mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, which is also known as magic mushrooms, the psychedelic form of mushrooms. And so when we microdose it, you don't feel high, you don't receive any psychedelic effects. You feel normal, except you're impacting the brain and the nervous system in a supportive way. And so there's three things that they've discovered. The researchers, like doctors, have been researching it, and it's really done so many amazing healing effects for people. Like they've done research with like cancer patients, deep dive experiences, which we would call a macro dose, and how it helps to heal them from their anxiety and fear around death, right? And it helps with depression and ADHD and all these things. And so, but microdosing is the small, tiny, tiny sub-perceptual dose, a very small dose. And they discovered that it increases neuroplasticity, which means that you can create new neural pathways in your brain. And that means that it becomes easier to rewire those limiting beliefs, those addictions, patterns, habits, thoughts, etc. Because what happens in the brain is that we have these grooves that are so grooved in, like a way of thinking, right, is like grooved in. And so this allows it to be more flexible. So we create a new groove, a new pathway. And as we get older, our neuroplasticity decreases. That's why kids are able to learn languages faster and easier, right? Because their plasticity is like super plastic. So this helps to open up your brain in this way. Second is it blocks the blood flow. It decreases the blood flow to the amygdala in the brain, which is responsible for fear and trauma responses, which are fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So that it helps you to lift your mood and be more present and be more, available and spacious in your mind and your body. And then third, it activates your serotonin receptors, which also help to create a better mood, helps your cognition, helps with creativity. So a lot of people will microdose to get clarity, to, get off of depression medication, anxiety medication, to be a better leader, right? To be a better mom. Like moms are microdosing, CEOs are microdosing, all kinds of people are microdosing now because they are discovering all these benefits.
Yeah.
That's the general explanation.
No, that was perfect. That was perfect. And, as you were talking about the grooves in the brain, many times I'll say to my clients, it's like potholes, right? And they just...
I love that.
And they get deeper and deeper, and you get stuck in this way, and it becomes more difficult for you to get out. And so being able to create new pathways is absolutely wonderful to help people look at life and experience life in a different way. Now, how did you get into the microdosing space?
So I first discovered psychedelic plant medicine in 2013 when I went to a couple of retreats to do ayahuasca. And that literally completely changed the trajectory of my life. And then a few years ago, I did my first one-on-one deep dive with mushrooms with my healer. And at that time in the journey, the mushrooms basically told me to facilitate this medicine. So at first I was resistant to it, but then I, part of my work is surrendering, right?
What
Surrendering.
was the resistance for?
So the resistance was because I have been observing the plant medicine communities. I would see a thread, not with everybody, obviously, but I would see that there were people who were facilitating that would not prioritize the integration work and were serving people deep dive peak experiences over and over again. And I didn't want to be lumped into that category. And so my ego was like having all these stories of like, and I was like, okay, I have to just let this go. And then I have to just focus on teaching people about what integration work and why it's so important to do it and to not chase the fix, because a lot of people will want to do these deep dives over and over again because they want something outside of them to fix them versus showing up 1% every day, a little bit more to do the work and practices. So that was my resistance, but I surrendered to it relatively quickly. And then I discovered microdosing, and I was working with clients with it, and it was miraculous. Like I was just like, wow, like I said, helping clients get off of their depression medication within a week or two.
Wow.
Ritalin for ADHD off of it for, after a week of microdosing. And it's not just the ingestion of the medicine, although that helps obviously all the ways I talked about. But again, the way I teach it is not about, it's not in the way the Western culture has taught us, where we just, pop a pill and something outside of us fixing us.
Right.
We are in relationship with the mushrooms, doing our part, and we work together. And so that's a very important piece of it, because this is about taking accountability and responsibility for our life, our work, and how we live it.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you, how does this tie into your work with being one's authentic self? And then, of course, tying it also back to femininity specifically. You started off even talking about that we're lacking that yin energy. And so go ahead, have at it.
Yeah. So, I usually don't use the word femininity because, I think that word, people normally think of, some girly girl or something like that. So, but I feel like the microdosing helps. Well, I know the microdosing helps in that it helps us to be in our body more. It creates space. So what I find a lot of times is that the people I work with are in functional freeze, and they may or may not know it, meaning that they're highly functional. I work with executives and people who have created a very successful business, but still their nervous system is frozen. There's a disconnection, and that happens internally. And so the microdosing helps them to thaw that frozenness, right? Like to soften so that they can open up to receiving. And that's what the yin feminine energy is. It's about surrender, it's softening, it's receptivity, it's embracing, it's being with what is. And so if we're unable to have that inner space, or if we are frozen, it is very, very challenging to be in that space.
Yeah, I love that. And I know people are going functional freeze. I know they're asking themselves now, are they stuck in that space? What are some signs? What are some things for people to consider?
So, because I was this woman, like literally everything I teach is what I've gone through. So I would say, ask yourself if you are a hyper independent person, right? Like, focusing on success or everything external, and, creating distractions externally can be a potential sign. But then internally feeling like stuck, feeling like you can't feel your feelings, or like one of my clients, she went to a funeral of somebody she cared about and couldn't cry, right? That was the way her inner frozenness
showed up.
Even though she runs an 8-figure business, right? And so it's like this incongruency sometimes between the external and the internal, but it's shutting down. If you are, say, in a relationship and you are in an argument with your partner, and maybe you shut down and freeze, right? You're literally like, oh, like you don't know what to say, you're just literally just like frozen and stuck. That's an indicator as well.
Thank you. No, those are good. And I know people are listening and thinking about themselves and where they are in their frozenness and or their thawing out process. So very important. Now you work with people. What are some of the services that you provide?
So I have actually a free information PDF for folks who are interested in learning more about microdosing. It's microdosingintro.com. And I'm going to be creating a digital course, a accessible course for people who want to learn how to create an effective and intentional microdosing practice. But in terms of like work with people, right now, I am working with people one-on-one. And, we go through a process of, doing this deeper work. And it really looks different based off of the people who come to me. I see what they need. And also I provide private group experiences for people. Because like sometimes like somebody might have a group of friends that want to do deeper healing work. And then we can create a container for them to do that healing work together. So I used to do programs, like I just started my most recent program, Coming Home to You. So if anybody's open and would prefer a more accessible way to work with me, because one-on-one is definitely more expensive, Coming Home to You program has started last week, and I'm still receiving people in if they're interested.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a 6-month program, and essentially it's a container where we're in sisterhood. It's for women, support them in microdosing, help them to create space, do this deeper healing work, really cultivating a more intimate relationship with themselves so that they can actually expand into the desires that they really want. Because if we are not doing this inner work, because it's not enough to do the mindset work, so, if they're noticing these subconscious patterns that we talked about, money, around relationships, around themselves, whatever it is, this deeper work is so important. So yeah, I'm always open to receiving people in, as this is still the beginning.
Fantastic. And how should people contact you?
So they can contact me on Facebook or Instagram. I think you'll be sharing the links, right?
Yep.
And also, you can just email me from my website on the contact page. I also shared with you the Coming Home to You link, I think. So they can always check that out as well for more of that information on that program. But yeah, I'm happy to. Oh, I also have a podcast too, if they want to binge.
I was coming for it.
Yeah, because I ended it, but I just ended it a couple weeks ago. But there's 130 episodes. So people can learn, for free and just receive all the teachings that I have to offer.
Yeah. So in the write-up on the YouTube side, if you go in there, all her links are right there. They're all active in order to contact her and see what she has available. Now, I know you're currently doing the Coming Home to You program. Do you have any events coming up, be it 2024 or 2025, any retreats or anything like that?
Oh, actually, I do. Thank you for asking. Yes, I have a retreat in April 4th to 11th. It's going to be in Tulum, Mexico. It is in a secluded beach property in a biosphere reserve, which is like it's magical, and it's called a soul renewal retreat. And we're going to be doing optional microdosing practice because it will help to deepen our other practices. And it's really about restoring and healing your nervous system, doing deeper work, really connecting more with your body and even your sensual self. So this is for women only. And so it's going to be life-changing. Like and this is not, it's just true. Like the way, when you do this kind of work that is based in the brain, nervous system, and body, literally everything shifts in ways that you're like, holy cow, I can't believe that happened. So if anybody's interested in that information's on my website as well. It would be, a pleasure to support you.
Fantastic. And are you only taking a certain number of people with you, or is it?
Yeah, it's a maximum of 15 people. So I like to have intimate spaces. And like I said, it's like delicious, organic food and meals. I mean, like, it's just so luxurious. It's like, what I call it is like cozy, chic luxury. The rooms are beautiful. There's also like tents for lower rates, but they're like the chic kind of tent.
Gotcha, right.
Like really, really like gorgeous and yeah.
I love it. I love it. And there's so much that I love about it. One is giving yourself permission to be your authentic self, right? Giving yourself permission to heal and be whole, and giving yourself permission to live the life that you desire and deserve.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so true. And what I find so often is that a lot of people don't allow themselves to be supported or to be held. And like, that's so, so important in our healing process. I have my healer, I have my coach, like we all need that kind of support. And so what I've discovered in my own process and in doing this work and just personally is that allowing ourselves to be seen allows the healing to happen. So being in community is so powerful. Like, to be seen in the parts that maybe you have been hiding actually allows the light to come in, so we can actually transform it instead of letting it fester in the shadows.
Yes. It's interesting, as you were talking earlier about people looking for something outside of themselves and not taking time to look inside of themselves to find all of those answers. I was recently talking with a client about the alchemist. And I said, many times people think of the alchemist as taking something external, right, and turning it into gold, not recognizing that they are the alchemist and they are the gold. And it's a matter of taking time to alchemize, work through, heal, address, shine light upon all of those areas that are within self that need to be developed so that you are the treasure that you seek.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so well said. Yes. It's all about the alchemy, turning that lead into gold. And what I've discovered is the only way to do it is with love. Like, it's like that energy literally is where the alchemy happens, because what I've discovered, again, from my personal life and working with clients, is we are so hard on ourselves, right? There's so many of us that are perfectionists, people pleasers, and that's usually the women that come to work with me. And so what they usually come to the work already feeling like something's wrong with them, or I've done all this work already. Why haven't I shifted yet? Just a lot of pressure and being unkind, like trying to force themselves into healing. And really, that's the energy of fixing, not healing. And so I found that the kindness, like, we first start with cultivating that level of compassion for ourselves. The only way, because like I said, I was in the dark and suffering for a couple of decades. It was so hard for a long time. And the way that I was able to do it was by bringing compassion into those moments that were the most challenging,
Mm-hmm.
amongst other things. But that, I mean, without that piece, everything is harder.
Yeah. Do you remember, and if you want to share, fine, and if you don't, fine. Do you remember when you gave yourself permission to start your healing authentically and even the depth of it? Like, I remember my moment,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember it was, I constantly said, like, I'll deal with it later. I'll deal with it later. I very much had a Scarlett O'Hara, I'll deal with it tomorrow. I'll deal with it tomorrow. And then one day I would have these mirror moments, and that was before Issa Rae and Insecure, right? And I would have these moments where my eyes would catch myself in the mirror and be like, girl, right? I remember even as a preteen, it was like, sit down. What's wrong?
Mm.
What's wrong with you? Like, there's no reason for your temper to be that hot. Like, let's talk about this. And I would just sit and I would look at myself, and my internal self and external self would have this conversation. And then, like I said, I remember as like a later teen adult, young adult, and it was just like, oh, I'll deal with it tomorrow. And it was like, if you don't deal with this sooner or later, you're setting yourself up for a breakdown at 30.
Mm.
And it was like, what is it that you're not dealing with? And I took paper to pen, and this is why I promote and advertise journals all day, every day, the power of writing. And I'm a typist, but
Mm.
there's something about writing it if you're able to.
Yeah.
And I just started going through everything. And this was before I was in school to become a psychologist. This is before I had my master's. That intuition of what I needed to do for self. So, again, going back to the poem that I wrote, Release and Crisis, it
Mm.
was that internal voice that was telling me what I needed to do. And it was me listening to
Yes.
it and following its directions, because what I refer to as my greatest self was leading me. And it was trusting and developing that intimate divine relationship with oneself.
That is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. I love that. I love that you were able to listen like that. And it sounds like it was more of an inspired moment
Mm-hmm.
versus a
Mm-hmm.
desperate moment. I don't know. Is that?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was not a desperate moment in any way, shape, or
And
form.
that's so unusual. I just want to
Yeah.
say to
Okay.
the audience, like, we're either motivated by inspiration or desperation,
Mm,
but most of the time it's through desperation. So, like, that is unbelievable. Like, and,
mm-hmm.
and I want to just give people permission. The reason why I'm saying this is because it's okay if a rock bottom is the thing that motivated
That's
you
the
to heal.
catalyst. Yeah.
Right, because that happened to me, and I was very stubborn. I had, I couldn't see things. Like, I saw it, but I couldn't, so um it's okay wherever you are in this process. And for me, my moment was around 27 or so, and I had just gone through a breakup, and I was already in a place of, like, addiction and suffering, and just really so intense in my depression and anxiety and all of that. And I had a moment, well, it was like a couple week experience of losing uh, tens of thousands of dollars in online
Mm,
gambling.
mm,
And it was one of those moments that I was like, oh my God, how am I going to recover from this? And I literally saw myself, like, in my mind's eye, like I was in a dark tunnel. So literally, like, I feel like God or the universe put this image in my mind to help me, because I saw myself on the ground in the
mm-hmm.
tunnel, like literally, like, collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was like, I'm just going to give up. Like, how can I come back from this? I have so much shame. And I looked up, and I saw, like, it looked like miles and miles away down the tunnel. It was very long, was a tiny, tiny, tiny glimmer of light. It was so small, you could hardly even see it, but I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, all I need to do is focus on that light and keep moving towards it no matter what. I don't care how long it takes me. It might be right before I die, you know, whatever. It does not matter. And that light to me at that time represented happiness, because I hadn't been happy. And so even though I laughed a lot, nobody could tell how much pain I was in.
Yeah.
And so I committed. And I think that's really the first moment, is when you have that moment of like, you know what? I am committed to myself. I am devoted to this work, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes and how hard it is, I'm going to do it. And so I started crawling, right? So I literally had to get the energy to even get up to crawl. And then I kept on crawling. Eventually I was able to stand up. Eventually I was able to walk. Eventually I was able to walk faster and then start jogging. And then years later, I got out of the tunnel and I realized, oh my gosh, I feel happy for the first time. And this is years later.
Wow.
And I didn't have the support that I offer, because it could have been much faster, but I needed to go through my own process of learning, really. And so, you know, I think this is so important for people to understand that those moments of desperation or rock bottom are opportunities for us to awaken. It really is a moment of awakening, and you get to choose something different. And I'm so grateful that I did lose all that money, because how maybe I wouldn't have had that moment, you know, of acknowledgement. I don't know.
That's right.
And then I want to also say that there's been more, you know, like we're always in the practice, right? And so there's multiple moments of awakening.
Come on.
It's not this one and done experience. You just keep coming back to remembering.
Yep. And it's so true that you got to give yourself permission to continuously heal and recommit to the process. And, you know, I've been talking about forgiveness on a couple of my shows lately. And on the last one, we were talking about the loop that happens, where sometimes you think you've forgiven something or you think you've healed something, and then you come into contact with something which triggers that, right, that spot in your timeline of life, and it taps it. And sometimes it taps it and it's like, oh, snap. Like, I thought you were gone. And other times you breeze on by it and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't even respond to it. But it's okay, because some wounds take a little bit longer to heal. And as you were talking about, the uncovering, the stronger we get, the deeper we can dig in order to deal with what else needs to be there.
Yeah, it really does require the willingness. And it's such a beautiful process. It's uncomfortable. It can be scary at times, but it's so rewarding, because being able to lean into our vision for ourselves is worth it, right? We're worth it. And you get to learn in the process what you're made of. Like, it builds confidence, it builds self-trust. Start to trust in other people, you start to trust in the divine. And you know, I'm like so internally grateful, because it was so bad, and here I am able, you know, and life isn't perfect, I'm still human, right? But I have the tools. I trust that if I lean into the work, that something will expand within me.
Yeah, 100%. Over on the Instagram side of life, I just want you to know, Joy said, it looks and feels like crap when you are in it. Says, sometimes I can't forgive because it's so bad. Is that bad that I can't forgive?
So do you have something to say? Or
yeah, I'm going to let you have at it first.
Thank you for sharing, Joy. First of all, I appreciate the rawness of that share. So in my world, so in coming home to you, I actually have a practice called anger alchemy, because that was one of my things. Is I had so much resentment and anger in me, and I had a hard time forgiving. And what I discovered in my work with myself is that if I don't forgive, it impacts me. I'm hurting myself, and we don't need, we don't force ourselves to forgive. It's not a mental process of just saying, okay, I'm going to forgive this person. No, it's about going deeper, like we talked about, doing that healing work around, because it's usually a deeper root. Even if there's something that you're holding on to that might be current in your life, there's a thread that goes back time and time again. I see it over and over again. You're nodding your head, so I'm sure that you see that with your clients too.
Yeah.
Like
self and others. I see it in self, within myself, and I see it in others. Yes,
exactly. And so it's like, are we willing to do the work to go to the root cause and heal from there? Because what I've seen is usually it's some kind of, something with our parents or something, there's something there that has not gotten the attention and love and healing that it needed. And guess what? When you start doing that work, everything starts to open, even the forgiveness. And I have a client, she never thought she would even consider forgiving. And she's at a place where she's like, wow, for me to even have a feeling like I'm willing to forgive is a huge step. So yes, I do think it's important to forgive, but done in a way that actually is effective and not bypassing your feelings.
Yes. And I think that's part of the discovery part too, is going through all of the feelings, not just the big ones, but the pin size one. Like you talk about that light in the tunnel. Sometimes we ignore that one because it's like a fleck. We don't think it has a lot of weight. But even that tiny gnat that lands on you, you feel it, right? It gets on your nerves. And so it needs to be addressed. And so many times we will bundle our feelings into another feeling and not claim everything that is bothering us. And so I always encourage people to get a feelings chart. You can Google a 500-word feelings chart and literally just go through the feelings chart. And this ties into something you said earlier. I always tell my clients TFF. When you look at the feelings, what do you think about it? Because, so like if you see the word embarrassed, you might have a thought like, I was embarrassed. It resonates with me. What do you feel about it emotionally? Like, yeah, I was so embarrassed. I can't believe it. And then also physiologically, are you feeling that? Because sometimes people will go past a word that they think they're not having a response to. Emotionally, they feel like they're not having a response to, but they notice a twitch in their shoulder. So that means your body is holding on to something. So you have to note that as well. And you got to go through, hence that mind, body, spirit connection, because to your point, right, we're trying to open it up and get that circulation flowing again. Many times people only think of circulation physically, but I'm a Reiki practitioner as well. So energetically, we have to pay attention to that circulation.
Yeah. And emotions are energy. And
Come on, tell them.
The energy, like just by nature, needs to move. And as a, acupuncturist, I discovered this very quickly. Like we talk about stagnation, like stagnation in the body. And so the more that we are trying to control or contort or contain our emotions, then the more it becomes stagnant. And guess what? That stagnancy lives in the body, and it will cause depression. It will cause anxiety. Like depression is pushing down of emotions, right? I had a client who was suicidal and depressed for many years. He didn't even microdose. And just me guiding her into her body to feel and express and move this energy, he was no longer suicidal in just less than a couple of months. This is how powerful the work is to feel. And so, we can't, it's important to note that I understand how uncomfortable it is to feel. There's a lot living in our undercurrents.
Come on.
I have a lot of compassion for that because that's what I did, right? And you got to go through, not around.
Come on. I tell everybody all the time, do like Peppa Pig and jump in the muddy puddles. You got
I love Is that your book?
No, that's not my book, but you got to jump in. I don't want you leaning in, because when you leaning in, you just looking at it. You can Michael Jackson that thing and lean back out. But when you jump in, that means you're ready to do the work, and you got to do what it takes in order to clean yourself up, and you got to go through it. So my line is, you got to go to it in order to go through it, in order to grow from it.
Because if it's not just a band-aid situation, right? We want to heal not just the symptoms, we want to heal the root.
That's right.
And that's really the bottom line of it all, is like, are we willing to do that? And to do that, a lot of times we need support.
Yeah. So 2 quick things, and then we're going to get ready to wrap up, because I know your time. All right. So first of all, Joy said, thank you very much. I needed this. I have to go to a work meeting.
Okay. Thanks for joining,
Joy. And then we have a special shout out here.
Oh, Shane. Oh my God. Hello.
Oh, hello. So yes.
So happy.
I knew it would. Yes, makes me very happy too. So yeah, it's so much work that can be done, and healing that can be done. And there's so much joy to be had, and so much happy life to live.
Can I just add something
Please.
to that? So what I've discovered is, the more that we expand our capacity to feel the discomfort and the pain, the more that our joy and our gratitude expand as well. It's all on the same spectrum. So it's really about expanding our capacity to feel and be with. So I love that. And this is what in pleasure too, right? Just like an intimacy and having the things that you want. So, we're not just healing just to heal. We're healing so that we can expand into the life that we desire.
Come on. Exactly. I'm going to read the last part of my poem again, because I think it just encompasses everything that we've talked about. So let's go with this. Let me see where it's at. Said, then up came the message from deep inside that all the lies had been trying to hide. These simple directions came from within and led me to release this form of sin. One by one, my love, let them fall. It's time to release that water wall. With sadness released, there's more room for bliss. Remember, when you cry, you release more than just tears. You release toxins, trauma, memories, and fears, lies, pain, relationships too, and especially inauthentic forms of you. As you release each fear, make your desires known. What do you want in life? It asks. Take some time. Be alone. Where in your life are you tired, frustrated, and being denied? Where in your life are you unsatisfied? To be all that you were created to be, where in your life do you need to be set free? The crisis is the turning point to make something new. It represents the dis-ease in your life and nature's call beckoning you to step up for you. So how you choose to use this moment really is your choice. I recommend you take some time to learn your inner voice. In the midst of developing this relationship, don't be surprised when you hear your inner voice tell you to release in crisis.
So powerful. Wow.
So,
thank you for that.
Here we go. So tell them once again how they can get a hold of you. Tell them once again about this retreat that they need to come to in April. And then we're going to get ready to close out.
Yeah, so I would love to connect with you all on Instagram, Facebook. Check out my podcast, Tao of Po. The retreat, April 4th to 11th, called Soul Renewal Retreat in Paradise. It's literally paradise for women. This retreat it's going to be luxury. It's going to be rest. It's going to be sisterhood. It's going to be healing. We're going to have yoga. There's going to be a sweat lodge. There's going to be a cacao journey. There's going to be all kinds of amazing practices, and also plenty of time alone and integration time to rest and restore. So that's on my website if you're interested. I do have a early enrollment special, which is 10% off until the end of November. And yeah, coming home to you. You can see that on my website as well. The program has started last week, but still enrolling people if interested. And that's where you literally come back home to yourself and do this work of creating space in your life, in your mind, in your body, and healing the deeper wounds, these root wounds that we were talking about, and cultivating a deeper connection with yourself and others. And if you have been struggling with resentment and forgiveness and anger or rage, you need to be in this program, because there are not many offerings that help people to focus on that and really teach it in a way that's going to move it through your body and heal in a sustainable way versus anger management, right? I'm not helping you to manage your anger. I'm helping you to transform your anger and resentment into fuel, into power, into your voice, into confidence, you know? So, yeah, it's a very powerful, and it's going to be the last one I'm going to be doing in a long time. So now is the time.
Get in.
Get in here.
Y'all heard it. Y'all heard it. And I love that transformative, transfigurate alchemy, right? Taking that energy and shifting it. And that's exactly it. You know, when we talk about emotions, E is for energy, and right, emotion. So energy and motion, and how you choose to shift that energy and how you choose to use it. It is yours. And Poe is one of these wonderful people that exists in this world that can help teach you how to do that. So definitely check out the links that are in the write-up on the YouTube page, Ask Dr. Walls 525, and connect with her. And join us again. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. I have some other shows coming on later today, so you got to click to subscribe to find out about them. And as always, Poe, I just thank you. I love spending time with you. I know we haven't had the chance to do it in person in a long time, but I look forward to that being soon. We got a green couch we got to sit on when we get in each other's presence.
Yes.
To the rest of you, continued health, healing, and happiness. And as always, God bless, and continue to live your greatest life. We'll see you again real soon. All right, y'all. Have a great one.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye.